Who will raise taxes on the middle class?
On the eve of the candidates' first debate, the Romney campaign searches for new lines of attack.
For everyone to be patient with me, I appreciate it.
Also today, Jesse Jackson Jr.'s invisible run for re-election. And the Supreme Court prepares to tackle some heated political issues. I'm Megan Lieberman, live in the New York Times newsroom. Tomorrow night's the first presidential debate, and the Romney campaign knows it needs a win to swing the campaign's momentum. Meanwhile, this week, they've been attacking the president on everything from Libya to taxes. Romney reporter Michael Barbaro joins me now to talk about the Romney campaign's strategy. Hello, Michael. So, Michael, they have this new ad out today on attacking the president on taxes, saying he raised taxes on the middle class. Last week, at an event with Paul Ryan, he said that the Obama administration had not raised taxes on the middle class. What gives?
Right. Well, I mean, we've talked about this in the past. The Romney campaign has made clear that it will not be beholden to the crazy fact checkers.
They're not going to let fact checkers
who
run
go
this
around
campaign.
truth squatting. I mean, what they have done with this ad, I mean, just to get very in the weeds, is they found a new way of dealing with the Supreme Court decision that found that the mandate was technically a tax.
The healthcare decision.
The healthcare decision on Obamacare. So that's what they're riding with in this ad. But what they're really trying to do is draw these very, very stark contrasts on a wide set of issues as they enter this debate. And we've also talked about the fact that the big internal discussion in the Romney campaign is, are we firing Obama or are we hiring Mitt Romney? And they've moved very far from that original thesis, which is that you are just running a negative campaign.
You're just firing the president.
Now they're creating a choice. And in order to create a choice, you have to create a menu of issues where you start to draw those very strong contrasts. One of those is going to be on taxes and big government.
So on this menu of issues question, you and I have also talked a lot about the fact that this campaign has had a hard time either finding a message or sticking to a message. So they were talking about Libya yesterday, they're talking about taxes today. There are plenty within the campaign who think they should only be talking about taxes in the economy, jobs in the economy. Why have they had such a hard time arriving at a message, and do they really feel like they need this menu now?
Well, one of the things, of course, is that campaigns talk to multiple audiences at the same time. But you're right, there has been a difficulty. I mean, there are several slogans a month that sometimes come out of this campaign. And so what you're seeing is the aftermath of this internal debate being resolved. The resolution being, if we are creating a choice election, if we're going to basically change one of the big fundamental assumptions of this campaign, now what do we do? And what you do is you have a bunch of meetings inside a campaign, you have a bunch of discussions and debates, and out come 5 or 6 issues now where they think they have to make a case to go after particular voters who care about particular issues. The voter who cares about health care, the voter who cares about taxes, the voter who is drawn to international affairs as an issue. So it's it's kind of a spaghetti against the wall approach.
Yeah, and this has also led to some reports of dissension within the campaign. And the real target of that seems to be Stuart Stevens. So it's not very surprising he's the chief strategist of the campaign, but what do you hear about the dissent within the campaign? You
know, there's a natural attempt when things are going
poorly.
Wrong or somewhat poorly to sort of affix this to one person. It's probably unfair, but Stuart Stevens is the most colorful and interesting figure within the Romney campaign. He puts his fingers in film, in writing, oh, by the way, in campaigning, and he's larger than life. And also, he was the one person in the campaign driving the message and the sort of attempt to focus this on firing Barack Obama, on making the case against the president, and assuming that the economy would more or less make Mitt Romney's case for him. As we've seen the campaign move away from that, we've seen people point fingers at Stuart Stevens and say, why did the campaign listen to him so faithfully? Why was he driving this campaign towards that strategy when it didn't appear to be working as wonderfully as they thought? Again, it might not be a fair thing to do, but it's a very natural thing to do.
All right, so let's talk about the debate. The Romney campaign has acknowledged, as have most of its surrogates, that he needs a big night tomorrow. He needs to change the dynamic, and he has to sort of create some moments. How are they planning to do that?
Well, on a substantive level, I think you're going to hear the Romney campaign make a case for government-centered economy that Barack Obama has created. And you're going to watch them go after him and make that case. And that could be very powerful because you're also going to probably see Barack Obama saying, look, we have very different philosophies. But you're going to see Mitt Romney drive at that with particulars. Why are you foisting a huge healthcare program on this country? Why do you have views about government that are so at odds with mine and also with what he thinks Americans view government as? And so, more tactically, you're going to see him throw in some clever zingers And you're going to see him try to get under Barack Obama's skin, because the Barack Obama that no one likes is the one that is a little peevish,
A little professorial,
a little professorial, in the words of Republicans, smug. If they can draw out that Barack Obama, they will have achieved a good measure of victory in the debate.
And what about the post-debate plan? We have heard a lot about them stepping up the campaign schedule, about more events with Ryan. We really haven't seen that in this leading up to the debate. He's got another debate to prep for in a week.
You know, he is a total A-plus, student when it comes to debate prep. He does sometimes 3 debate prep sessions a day. So they're really determined to spend their time, and probably time well spent, by the way. But one of the things they're going to do, and this goes back to this menu of issues, they're going to give a big foreign policy speech, because they believe that there's a case to be made. Again, it's not about the economy. Take note of that.
It's about leadership.
It's about leadership. The idea that they're going to argue that Barack Obama has let world events define him rather than defining world events, like what we saw in Benghazi with the consulate being attacked.
Thanks, Michael.
My pleasure.
Turning now to a high-profile House race. There are 435 contests, but there's no race quite like the one in Illinois' 2nd District.
So if everyone would be patient with me, I appreciate it.
This is Monica Davey. I'm the Chicago bureau chief of the New York Times. Jesse Jackson Jr. is running for Congress. This is his 10th run, but it's a really unusual race here because he is nowhere to be found. He disappeared in early June, and his office later reported that he was suffering from bipolar disorder and that he was in treatment. There are some suggestions that perhaps he will actually exit the ballot at some point here. His office says, no, he's on the ballot to stay, and that he's going to press right on. The unusual thing is that he's widely expected to win by the pundits here in Chicago. There are 3 opponents. He has a write-in, an independent, and a Republican who are urgently running against him, but you almost find no campaign going on. They're running around handing out business cards and trying very low-budget ways of running a campaign. But Jesse Jackson Jr. is doing almost nothing. There aren't billboards out there. There aren't signs out there. You don't see surrogates. It's almost as though there isn't a campaign at all. It seems like it shows 2 different things. One thing is that it shows that the way maybe the country treats mental illness has changed since the 1972, when Thomas Eagleton had to exit the ballot when it was learned that he had had treatment for depression. And in this case, you don't hear anyone saying particularly that he should exit the ballot.
He is my father and my friend. I now present to you the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
It also shows how democratic the district that Jesse Jackson Jr. holds is. This is a district that runs on the south side of Chicago and then in the southern suburbs, and it has gone for a Democrat since the 1960s, very, very reliably. And I think what it shows is that even if the Democrat doesn't show up, he can still pretty effectively probably win office, or so the pundits here say.
Against the backdrop of a highly charged political season, the Supreme Court's poised to take up a number of controversial cases. Supreme Court correspondent Adam Liptak joins me now from Washington to preview the court's term. So, Adam, last term there were a lot of hot-button issues: immigration, health care. It seems like this term could be just as politically charged.
They really had a blockbuster, once-in-a-generation term last time around. And they often take a pause, but they didn't this time. They have a very full docket coming this term as well. And some of those are really going to engage the public.
So, Adam, on the affirmative action case that they're going to hear, there was a big decision in 2006 with Sandra Day O'Connor making the decision there. With Sam Alito having replaced her, it seems like that decision could be overturned.
Yeah, they decided to revisit that case, 2003 case, only 9 years afterwards. And it seemed like that was a deal that was going to stick for a quarter century. That was Sandra Day O'Connor's plan. But now it looks like the court will take a fresh look at whether public universities can take account of race at all in their admissions decisions in order to create a diverse student body.
And they're also poised to maybe take up same-sex marriage. There are a couple of different decisions. Justice Kennedy has written some high-profile gay rights decisions. Do we expect him to be the deciding vote there, and what cases are they looking at?
Those will be 5-4 cases also. Justice Kennedy will be in the majority either way. The case the court is almost certainly going to take up involves the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, the federal law that defines marriage as between a man and a woman, and the consequence of that definition is that states where people are lawfully married, same-sex couples like, say, Massachusetts, don't have the federal benefits that lawfully married opposite-sex couples have. And that, for same-sex marriage advocates, is probably a good, small, incremental step, and they're very optimistic they have Kennedy's vote on that. Whether the court takes up the broader question of a constitutional right to same-sex marriage in states that don't want it is a more problematic question.
So Adam, the big intrigue on the court this term is really the role of Justice Roberts. There are a couple of sort of conspiratorial views of the Chief Justice at this point. On the left, they sort of view him as someone who decided very narrowly for the president's health care law so that he can now be very conservative on all these other issues without seeming sort of reflexively partisan. And then on the right, there's always this fear that maybe this is sort of the sign that that decision was sort of the sign that he's a closet moderate and he'll be another in a long line of conservative justices who disappoint them. Which of those views do you think is actually closer to reality?
Well, this term will give us a lot of evidence. The Chief Justice gave us a big surprise by joining the liberals on the health care decision, but it may not be. Federalism may not be the issue that really keeps him up at night. He does care quite a lot about race. He cares a lot about campaign finance. He cares a lot about criminal procedure. And in those areas, there's no particular reason to think that John Roberts has moved to the left.
So, Adam, before we go, there was a decision to sort of block implementation of a voter ID law in Pennsylvania this morning. Is that something that could get before the Supreme Court before Election Day? And does it relate to anything else that the court is working on?
That decision was decided under state law, and it'll probably get one more time to the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, not to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a variety of decision that comes up again and again, and there's a theme that runs through it. Many courts are quite comfortable with the idea of requiring voter ID, but they want to make sure that people can actually get it. People without driver's licenses can, with a minimum of hassle, actually get voter ID. And here the judge decided that Pennsylvania just wasn't set up to give people voter ID who needed it.
Thanks, Adam.
Good to be here.
That's all for today, but tune in tomorrow night for a special edition of Times Cast Politics. We'll be live streaming the debate, and we'll bring you fact-checking and analysis from the Times Politics team before and after. It all gets underway at 8:30 p.m. I'm Megan Lieberman. Thanks for watching.